Hey everybody, welcome back to homerecordingmadeeasy.com and here on my YouTube channel. And in this video, we are going to start a brand new series around the whole universal audio ecosystem. In today's video, I want to start from the very beginning. This is the first video of this longer series that will be in a playlist, link in the description box below, where I want to take you through the hardware side of universal audio and talk about the different pieces of hardware, what they do, how you would use them, and kind of the whole concept to try to help folks that are new to universal audio or people who have heard me and other YouTube channels talk about universal audio and they're new and they don't really understand what it is, why it is, how it can benefit you, and all that stuff. So that's what we're going to talk about in this video. We're going to talk about the hardware side of it. I'm going to show you some of the hardware and explain it to you. But before we get started, if you like what you see in this video, please hit that subscribe button and the notification bell. Also, if this is your first time here, go out to homerecordingmadeeasy.com. I want to give you a free mixing course worth about $50. It's right on the homepage. Click the orange button, get a free mixing course at homerecordingmadeeasy.com. And if you stick around till the end of the video, I'm going to give you another free gift as well. So make sure you watch till the end. This is interesting stuff if you've ever heard of universal audio. So everything I'm going to show you today is on the Sweetwater.com website. This is not a sponsored video by Sweetwater or by Universal Audio for that matter, but all the affiliate links and anything I talk about will be in the description box below, and those are my affiliate links with Sweetwater, meaning that if you purchase something on Sweetwater's website, whether it's Universal Audio or anything else using those links, I do get a small commission, and you are helping me out here at homerecordingmadeeasy.com, but you don't pay any more for the product. However, this video is being done on my own, and no, we're not in cahoots with anyone doing this video. I'm just a big Universal Audio fan, and I want to try to help out some of the students of mine and ask me lots of questions about it. So here we are on the on the Sweetwater.com website, although all the same information is on the universalaudio.com website as well, and I'll leave their link in the description box below. So let's talk today about the hardware. So there's a couple of videos that are going to be linked in the description box that I want to reference right away in case I forget to say it. The first one is I did a video called DSP versus CPU and how your plugins run on your computer system and or the DSP chips inside of the universal audio hardware, which we'll talk about in a minute. But I break down that whole thing because that could be somewhat confusing for folks that are new to using something like hardware, universal audio, to run plugins. So check that video out in the description box below if you get a little bit confused between the terms DSP and CPU and how all of that works. So that's the first video that I want you guys to make sure that you guys check out. Okay, so it'll be in the description box. So universal audio, really from working with a DAW point of view, has really three pieces of hardware. Okay, there's three main pieces of hardware. You have your Apollo audio interfaces, which we'll talk about. We also have the satellite systems that we're going to talk about, and we also have the plugins themselves, and we'll talk a little bit about those. So I first want to start off and talk to you quickly about the plugins. So the plugins, universal audio plugins, which again, you can purchase both on Sweetwater.com's website. And again, I have a video in the description box that takes you through that process, but you can also purchase them right on the Universal Audio website as well. Universal Audio has been around for a very long time, and they are known for making high quality plug-in emulations of old classic analog gear. Everything from LA2A compressors to 1176 compressors to Pultec EQs, even SSL consoles, channel strips, Neve consoles, API consoles, and there's a whole bunch more. Again, check the video in the description box where I walk through all their plugins. And part of this series will be, I'm going to be doing plugin reviews on each one of the plugins that I own, and we'll get to that later. Okay, so that's their whole claim to fame, Universal Audios. They make and have been making for a long time plugin emulations of old classic analog gear found in the most famous recording studios in the world. Now, what makes them a little different than all the other companies that came later that make the same plugin emulations of the same kind of gear is that Universal Audio plugins don't run off of your internal CPU's computer, your computer's CPU. It runs off of their hardware. And the reason for that is you can save a lot of computer resources by not having to process the plugins when you're doing your recording and mixing session. It's offloaded to the hardware, which we're going to talk about. And that's kind of the first benefit to it, is that you don't have to worry about taxing your CPU, your computer's CPU, while you're running a bunch of plugins, because it's not really running on your computer's CPU. The plugins run off the hardware. Now, the hardware, again, we have really two different types of hardware. We have the Apollo interfaces and we have the satellite system. So let's start with the satellite system first, because that's probably the easiest to explain. So here on Sweetwater's website, let me show you what one of those look like. And Universal Audio also now makes guitar effects pedals. They also make analog hardware as well. That's for another video, but let's talk about the satellite system. So here is one here. I'm just going to click on this here. And here is, again, depending on when you're watching this video, this is being recorded in year 2021, in May 2021. And this stuff is always changing. Technology is always being updated. So by the time you see this video, if it's a little bit down the road, some of these images and some of the specs might change. They'll probably just improve. But here's the basic concept. So the first piece of hardware I want to show you is the UAD2 satellite Thunderbolt. Okay, they make this in a Thunderbolt. They also make it in a USB-C, and I believe they even maybe still make it in a Firewire if you have a computer that has the old style connector. But basically what this is, it's a little box. It's a little desktop tabletop box. And here's a picture of it. Here's a bigger picture where it has a power supply. Okay. And basically here's the back of it. This one happens to be a Thunderbolt, where it actually is like a little mini computer, and that gets plugged into your computer via, in this case, Thunderbolt, or depending on which UAD2 satellite you purchase, depending on the different connectivity, connects directly to your computer. Here's another photo of it here. Another photo, and basically all it is a power switch with a cable that plugs into your computer, okay? And they have different versions of this, okay? So in this particular case, they have what's called an Octo, and you'll see this is a Thunderbolt 3. This is for, today, 2021 technology, Thunderbolt 3. They've had Thunderbolt 2 and Thunderbolt 1 in the past. This is an Octocore, and what an Octocore means is that an Octo inside of this box, they don't show you a picture of it, but I'm sure I can find one and maybe post it up here on the screen in post-production, where they have DSP chips, what looks to be like little CPU chips on a computer board that's inside of this box. An Octo has 8 of them, okay? So what differentiates the difference between, let's say, an Octo, and they also make a quad processor model, which is a little bit cheaper, $799, where the Octo is $1199. The Octo is the same exact box, right? Same pictures, looks exactly the same. You would never know the difference, but the difference is it only has 4 DSP chips inside of this nifty little box, okay? So the quad has 4, the Octo has 8. What does that mean? Well, what that means is the more DSP chips that you have inside of your system, the more universal audio plugins that you can run simultaneously in your DAW recording or mixing session. Now, this will work with both Mac or PC. It also will work with any DAW, right? Studio One, Logic, Cubase, Pro Tools, Reaper, Universal Audio Luna, which we'll talk about in another video, and any other DAW that's out there, it will work with. It'll also work with any audio interface that you might have that's not a universal audio interface. This is a separate piece from your audio interface. This is not an audio interface like the Apollo units are, which we'll talk about in a few minutes. All this does is house either 4 or 8 DSP chips inside this little computer and plugs into your computer. And then your computer and your DAW will see this is where it hosts all of the universal audio plugins that you have on your system, which we'll talk about. So you don't need to have a Universal Audio Apollo interface to have this. You can use any audio interface, any DAW. If you get yourself either a quad or an Octo, again, 4 or 8 chips, you can use it with your system, and you can right away be using universal audio plugins, okay? That's the satellite system. And again, the only difference that really differentiates between one over the other is the amount of chips that are inside, okay? Again, Mac PC compatible. When you're choosing this for your system on Sweetwater's website or anywhere else that you want to buy a UAD2 satellite, you want to make sure that you know what kind of connectivity is on the back of your computer, whether you're using Mac or PC, to make sure that you buy the correct configuration. The one I just showed you was a Thunderbolt 3, which would be used for a Mac. They also make ones that are specific for Windows and all of that. But if you consult your Sweetwater engineer, you'll be fine. And it'll say in the description what it's compatible with. They work exactly the same. It's just the connectivity that is different. Okay, so that's the satellite system. You have two versions. You have a quad and you have an octo. They used to make, in some of the older versions of this, I don't know if they still carry them on the website, but they used to make what was called a duo system. A duo system only had two DSP chips. So you'd have a duo, a quad, and an octo. I don't believe they make a duo any longer. They used to make a satellite duo, and they actually used to make a PCIe card, which we'll talk about in a second, for an expansion card. They actually used to make a solo, which had one DSP chip. So you can either have 1, 2, 4, or 8. It looks like today they're just dealing with 4 and 8, that the duo and the solo have kind of gone away, at least from the satellite point of view. So as you're going down here, you can check to make sure that you have the correct connectivity for your particular system. Now, the other slight configuration variation of the satellite systems, and you'll see like this one happens to be an octo that's $15.99, where the last octo we looked at was only, I think it was $11.99. And you say, well, what's the difference? They've also packaged these with a couple different plug-in package options. So when you purchase a satellite, it comes with a core set of plugins, okay? It comes with, I think, 15 or 17, what they call the classic series plugins, which will come with a couple of LA2As and 1176s and some Pultec EQs, and I think a Fairchild, maybe a reverb and a delay and a channel strip. It comes with a core set of plugins that you can use right out of the box. No need to purchase anything else. However, if you wanted to package it with maybe some additional plugins, they have some different package options. So this one that's $15.99 gives you the Analog Classic Plus Custom, as opposed to the Analog Classic Plus. Plus is $11.99. This is what I showed you before. But if you want to get the Classic Plus Custom, that allows you, as you read down here, the custom package generally allows you to go in and actually not only get the core set of plugins, but you actually get to go pick additional plugins, any ones that you want to pick. So you can buy them a little bit cheaper by buying the upper package here, and then you get some additional plugins of your choosing that you can pick from the large variety of plugins that they have. So what does all that mean? The two things you really want to think about when you're talking about getting a satellite to add on to your existing system is, first of all, what kind of connectivity do you have on your computer, and are you Mac or PC, right? The second decision you need to make is, what do I want to get? Do I want to get an octo, or do I want to get a quad version? 4 or 8 DSP chips, how big of a system do I want? And then the third decision to make is, what package options, if any, do I want? Do I want to upgrade to the Analog Classic Plus Custom, or do I just want to stick with the Analog Classic Plus, which is the core set of plugins that come with it, okay? Those are the three things around the satellite system. And once you made those decisions and you've purchased and you've installed the software and hooked it up to your computer, you can use the Universal Audio plugins right away. And again, you can check the video in the description box where I talk about how many plugins can you run, how do you use them, DSP, CPU, all of that is in that video I talked about earlier on. So that's the satellite. The second piece of hardware that Universal Audio makes that'll also allow you to run plugins, let me scroll back here, get back to my main screen, is they make what's called the Apollo audio interfaces. Now, as I said, the satellite that we just talked about is not an audio interface. You don't plug in a guitar or a microphone and record into it. All it is a small little computer that houses the PC board with the DSP chips to run plugins only, okay? Make sure you understand that. The Apollo is actually a series of audio interfaces, and they make them everything from a solo, which just has a couple of mic inputs, all the way through interfaces that have multiple inputs on them. So for example, if we just search Universal Audio Apollo, and just look at the Apollos, did I spell that right? Okay, here we go. So here's all the different configuration of the Universal Audio Apollos that Sweetwater has to offer, and there's a whole bunch of them. We're not going to go through every one because the concept is exactly the same. But the first one we could take a look at, let's say they make kind that are like a desktop unit, like this one here. This happens to be an Apollo Twin Quad Thunderbolt audio interface, $13.99. So if we just open this up, this is one that sits on your desktop here. And it's not a rack mounted unit, it's a desktop unit. You have a 1/4 inch input for your guitar. You have a headphone as well. On the back of the unit, you have 2 microphone inputs, microphone pre's. You have some outputs that can go to your studio monitors, as well as a line out to go to another piece of, say, gear if you wanted to. And this one is connected with Thunderbolt. It just simply sits on your desk, and it acts as your actual volume control for the sound coming out of your speakers or in your headphones. And you can do, recording, with 2, you have one guitar and 2 mic inputs. So you can go ahead and you can record an acoustic guitar or guitar vocal or bass, 1 or 2 instruments simultaneously. That's what you can do. Okay. Now, this one happens to be a quad, which means that inside of this box, just like with the satellite that I showed you, there is 4 DSP chips to enable you to run and process their plugins, just like the satellite. What's the difference between an Apollo and a satellite system? Well, an Apollo is actually an audio interface with preamps and mic line inputs and preamps, and you hook your studio monitors up to it, where the satellite is just simply a box that sits on your computer or under your computer or on your desk or under your desk and just runs the plugins. This is actually a recording audio interface as well, but it has the same 4 DSP chips inside that allow you to do processing with their plugins. This one happens to be $1,399. If you remember, when we looked at the quad satellite, it was $1,199. So for a couple of $100 more, you're also getting the benefit of an audio interface with real high quality preamps, real high quality D to A and A to D converters. And it's just they're known for making high quality audio interfaces. Okay. Now you can also, with the Apollo Twin X, if you come down here, you'll see there's some different models. And once again, here's the one we're looking at. But as I told you a bit ago, they used to make, and they make with the Apollos, an Apollo Twin X Duo for a little bit less money, for about $400 less. Now, again, what's the Duo? The Duo only has 2 DSP chips inside of it, as opposed to the Quad, which has 4. Okay. This one is also called the Heritage Edition. Again, the Heritage Edition is just a different package of plugins that they package with this particular unit. I'm not going to go through all the different plugin configurations because they're changing these things all the time, and they're changing the names all the time. And so depending on when you're watching this video, some of this information may no longer be valid. So I want to make sure that I give you the stuff that's going to be tried and true. So the Heritage Edition is just an extended set of plugins that come with the package. Down here, they also make an Apollo Twin Quad with Heritage Edition for $15.99. So we have a quad that's $13.99 and a Quad Heritage Edition, which is $15.99. The Heritage Edition is going to give you some additional plugins. But the internals, the guts, the DSP chips, and the preamps and all of that is exactly the same on all 3 models, depending on which one you buy. Just like with the satellite, you want to make sure that your connectivity on your computer matches the one that you're going to buy. They have them both, again, for Windows and for Mac. So you want to make sure that you pick the correct configuration. Okay, that's one type of Universal Audio Apollo, the smaller, one of the smaller desktop units. If we go back here a bit, you'll see they also make, let's scoot over here, they also make another desktop unit that's a little bit more pricey here. Here is the Universal Audio for Heritage Edition. Let's just take a look at this one here. This one is $2,199. This is called the X4. The other one was the X2. You say, well, what's the difference? Well, this is also a desktop unit. But if you look at the back, this one has 4 mic line preamps, and it has 2 additional line outs, still has your monitor outs, just like on the smaller one, still connects with Thunderbolt 3, and it has optical in and out, okay? So this is a little bit more extended than the one that we just looked at, okay? This one here let's see, is this, what kind of processing power does it have? Is this a quad? What is this one? I think this one is called the X4, and I believe the X4 means it has 4 DSP chips in it. And this is why you want to make sure when you're looking at the Apollos, because there are different flavors and different models, that you make sure you read the specs. But the X4 has 4 DSP chips in it, okay? They also make down here, you'll see an X6 and an X16. An X6 is going to look like, is a rack-mounted unit. An X6 is going to have 6 DSP chips in it, okay? So we'll scoot back here to our desktop, okay? Does that make sense, everybody? So we have this X4, and then we had the twin, both desktop units. The X4 has more preamps in it, has more line in and outs in it, okay? And that's why it costs more money, and it also has the same, but it has the same amount of DSP chips. 4 in this one, 4 in the quad that we just looked at. Okay, so that's another style of Universal Audio Apollo audio interfaces. If we go back, okay, so we so far have looked at the Twin X and we've looked at the X4, okay? Both of them have 4 DSP chips. If we scroll over here a little bit, we also see that they make some rack-mounted units as well. Here's one called the Apollo 8. Let me show you this one. This one's $3,000 or $3,100. This is a rack-mounted unit, okay? Has all the same functionality as the desktop unit, but just in a rack-mounted unit, okay? And if we take a look at some of the photos here, this will mount in a standard rack. Here is the back of the unit where you have, again, 4 mic line inputs, but you also now have 8 line inputs as opposed to 4 on the X4. So this is good if you want to integrate some additional hardware into your rig. You're going to need quarter out TRS line in and outs. So you have some more line inputs and line outputs. So we have 8 inputs and 8 outputs in addition to the 4 mic preamps and things like SPDIF. Again, this is connected via Thunderbolt. Okay, so all the same functionality of what we looked at with the desktop units, but some additional functionality with more inputs and outputs, and this is a rack-mounted unit, okay? This is an Apollo 8X, which means this has 8 DSP chips inside of it, which I believe is like the Octo, okay? And again, you can always read all the different specs below. They also make this one happens to be the standard plug-in edition, but this one is the Heritage edition as well. Again, at the time of the recording of this video, they package these plugins differently, but the hardware is the same, okay? So that's another style of Apollo interface that they make. So now we've looked at 2 desktop units and we've looked at 1 rack-mounted unit. We go page back and look at something else, and that was $3,100. Here is one called the X6. Now we just looked at the X8. Here is one that looks exactly the same on the outside, but this is called the X6. This is the one that I actually own. This one's $2,500. It's about $600 cheaper than the one we just looked at. Looks the same, but what's the difference? The difference is on the X6, you only have 2 mic inputs as opposed to 4, and you only have 6 line ins and line outs. Or on the last unit, the X8, you have 8 line ins and 8 line outs and 4 preamps as opposed to 2. That's the different pricing structure. It's still the Heritage Edition, but you only have, this is an X6, meaning you have 6 DSP chips inside. The 8 has 8 DSP chips inside, right? So you have more DSP chips, more preamps on the one we looked at prior, more line ins and more line outs. Okay, that's why it's $600 more. I have this one myself, and it's a wonderful interface, and I love it, and I've been using it for years. This is the Apollo X6 Heritage Edition. And I think, let's see, there's one more here that I want to show you. That's a rack-mounted unit. Where is it here? I believe it's called the 8P. Let me just scroll down. We looked at the X8. Now they also make one called the 8P. And let me just show you what the difference is there if I can find it. Here's the X6. The X16 we'll talk about in a second. Where is the 8P? Let me just make sure. And they bundle some with some microphones. Sweetwater does. Let me just show you the 8. Here's the 8P. So the 8P is $3,600. And you may go, whoa, what's the difference between an X8 and an X8P? Well, let's find out. It's still the Heritage Edition, still the same plugin suite. And here's all the plugins you get, by the way. But what's the difference between this and the one we looked at before? Well, this one, if you look at the back, has 8 mic pre-inputs, right? Where the 8 only had 4. This is the 8P. P stands for preamp, 8 preamps. They also have line in and outs, 8 line in, 8 line outs. This is done with a different type of connector. It's not 1/4-inch connectors, it's DBX25 connectors, but it's the same thing, meaning it works the same way. And then a set of outputs for your computer speakers. So the difference between this one and the regular X8, the difference between that and the X8P is the P stands for preamp, and you get additional preamps. So this is something that's great. Let's say if you're recording an acoustic drum kit and you need more preamps during your recording process. This is one that is very popular because you can plug in 8 microphones at the same time. You can even daisy chain the Apollo interfaces together using the Thunderbolt cable. So you go out of one into the other, and then from that second one into your computer, and then your computer will see both of these interfaces if you daisy chain 2 of these together as one large system. And in that particular case, you would then have 16 mic line inputs, right? And 16 mic line inputs and 16 preamps. So you'd have like a much larger system that can really handle any live band recording session. Okay. But this is almost $4,000. Okay. But again, you're getting very high quality preamps, very high quality D to A and A to D conversion, some of the top, really high quality stuff. You're not talking about entry level gear when we're talking about this stuff. Okay. So that's really the third or the fourth different version of the Apollo. Now, the last one I want to show you is the Apollo 16. Now, the Apollo 16, let me just make sure I get the right one here. Again, same thing, Heritage Edition. This is where you don't have, that's the X6, excuse me. Sorry about that. I was reading it wrong. This is why you got to be careful when you're doing this so you know exactly which one you're picking. Here's the X16 right here, $38.99. And you may say, whoa, that's the most expensive one. It is. Now the X16 doesn't have any preamps on it. No recording preamps whatsoever. All it has is 16 lines ins and lines out. And what this is used for is when you want to hook up, an array of different pieces of analog hardware to your universal audio system. You would do it with something like the X16, where this is really made to expand one of your other interfaces. You daisy chain them together, and this gives you a lot more I/O. And so this would be great if you had, some 1176 compressors, or you had your favorite preamps and you wanted to kind of tie it into your audio interface. This is something to consider, but you don't have any preamps on here or anything like that. So if you have an external preamp, let's say like, a 1073, a Neve 1073 pre that you really love recording through, you'd patch your microphone into something like this and then into your computer. Okay, makes sense? Still comes with a bunch of plugins. Now this is I believe this still only has, it doesn't have 16 USB DSP chips. The 16 signifies the ins and outs. This still has, I believe this only has 8. I believe. You'd have to read down and see. But again, if you're interested, you want to take a look and make sure that you read all of this, because again, the technology changes so quick and the configuration might be a little different by the time you watch this video. But I can assure you that I believe this has at least, it probably says right here. Oh no, this has a 6 DSP chips. I'm sorry. They call them hex core chips. This has 6, not 8. So the 16 has 6, just like the X6, but this is more line in and out versus preamps. Does that make sense? I know it can be a little bit confusing. That's why I'm going to leave the links in the description box below. So you could come to the Sweetwater.com website and you can look through all the different Apollos, the configuration, the plugin packages, and Sweetwater's even done some really cool things where they put some starter packs together. So if you're just getting into this, they'll package things with an interface, a microphone, some headphones, some microphone cables, and all of that stuff for one lower price. So you could get the whole package. So when you open everything up, you plug it into your computer and you can start recording right away. That's all done via Sweetwater, not necessarily Universal Audio, okay? So those are really the two main pieces of hardware: the Apollo recording interfaces, the audio interfaces, and the satellites that just run the plugins. The DSP chips that are inside of the Apollo that we've been talking about are the same DSP chips that are inside the satellite that run the plugins. The technology is the same. The only difference is the Apollo allows you to plug in instruments and record, where the satellite systems are just there to run your plugins. Now, the other thing that they have for people who have computers with PCIe slots, so let's just check this out. They used to. They still do. Okay, here they go. So they make two different PCIe expansion cards, a quad and an octo, right? A quad has 4 DSP chips, an octo has 8. And here's an example. Here's a picture of it so you can see. This is what's inside the satellite system as well. You see these DSP, they call them shark cards, these 4 chips. Those are the 4 chips that are inside the satellite as well. Here's a picture of it. This is a quad. This is for people that use a PC, that have PCI slots inside of your tower, or if you're not one of the new Mac Pro users where you have expandability with your tower computer, you can use this as well, where you don't have to have a desktop unit that plugs in with Thunderbolt. You plug this internally into your computer and all of your DSP processing is right there, but it works exactly the same way as the UAD2 satellite, but that's more of a desktop that just plugs into the back of your computer. This is actually internal to your computer, and they make 2 of them. They make a quad and they make an octo, right? So the octo has 8 chips, see? 4 on this side, 4 on that side, okay? So that's what they look like if you were wondering what they look like. They're called PCIe DSP accelerator cards, okay? They're compatible with Windows and with Mac. If you have one of the Mac Pros, even if you have an old Mac Pro from like 2009, you can plug this in one of those, or if you have one of the brand new high-flying Mac Pros that came out in 2020, you can put them in there as well. So that is the hardware side of the Universal Audio ecosystem and kind of how it works. So I want you to check out the videos in the description box below once again, because I have a video that talks about the DSP chips and how that is different from your CPU and how the plugins run on the different systems and the whole concept behind that. That's a dedicated video just to that topic, because I know people that are new to Universal Audio are often confused by that. And so I clear all of that up in that video. So make sure that you check out that video, as well as the video on how to purchase additional Universal Audio plugins from Sweetwater, where you pay no interest for up to 3 to 4 years, right, with your Sweetwater card. And then again, you can go through, and I'll leave the link in the description box for all the things that we talked about today with Universal Audio. And once again, all of that stuff are my affiliate links. So if you purchase anything here on the website using that link, I do get a small commission, and I thank you so much. So I want to thank you so much for sticking around and talking about the first video of a longer series of videos about Universal Audio. I thought this would be the perfect one to start with, because now you have an understanding of the hardware and how it integrates with your different type of computer. In subsequent videos, we're going to talk about the specific plugins. I'm going to demo the specific plugins. I'm going to show you Universal Audio's digital audio workstation, or what they call the recording system called Luna. We'll talk about that in future videos as well, and it'll all be in a playlist that'll be linked in the description box below. So you stuck around till the end of the video. I know it was a lot of information. I would encourage you, if you're new and a little confused, to kind of go back and kind of watch the parts again. And again, you can always email me and shoot me, or leave a comment below this video, and I could try to answer any questions that you have. And if you're dealing with the good folks over at Sweetwater, they can help you just as easily. But because you stuck around to the end of the video, you went out to Home Recording Made Easy early on, right? And you got yourself your free mixing course. Now, once you're done watching that mixing course, if you really dig my style of teaching and you really want to check out one of my paid training courses, and I have training courses in everything from recording to mixing to mastering to EQ and compression, everything from absolute beginner to more advanced level courses and everything in between, check it out at homerecordingmadeeasy.com. And I want to give you a coupon code. The coupon code is YouTube25. YouTube25 will take 25% off any one of the paid training courses on my website. I want to thank you in advance for checking it out. I know it'll really help you. And until the next video, I've been Dave with homerecordingmadeeasy.com. Thank you so much for joining me. Check out the Universal Audio stuff, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Take care.